Have you ever noticed that the more you talk about your life, the more it starts to fall apart? It's almost as if the moment you speak your dreams out loud, something begins to resist them. What if the universe isn't punishing you? It's protecting you from leaking your power too soon. Because sometimes silence isn't loneliness, it's alignment. And once you understand the psychology behind it, you'll never overshare again. You see, energy is the most valuable currency you possess, more valuable than time, more powerful than money. Because time passes whether you act or not, but energy decides how you move through it. And yet, most people don't lose energy through hard work or long hours. They lose it through talking. Every time you speak about what you're planning to do, every time you tell someone about your dreams or your next move, you give away a small portion of that inner force that was meant to build your future. When you share too early, your mind confuses the telling with the doing. You feel the satisfaction of progress without ever taking a single real step forward. Psychologists call it premature reward. It's when your brain rewards you for simply announcing effort. You talk about your goals, people praise you, and you feel accomplished. But that feeling is an illusion. The more you speak, the less urgency you feel to act. The fire that was supposed to push you into action slowly dies in conversation. In contrast, when you remain silent about your journey, something profound happens. Your focus sharpens. Your energy consolidates. You no longer seek validation from the outside world, so your motivation begins to grow from within. You start to move differently, not to prove, not to impress, but to build. Silence becomes your boundary. It keeps your energy contained, your intention pure, your direction clear. When you stop explaining what you're working on, you stop leaking energy into the opinions, doubts, and projections of others. You no longer carry their expectations. You only carry your purpose. That's when growth becomes natural, effortless, and authentic. Look at nature. The seed doesn't announce that it's growing roots. The tree doesn't explain how it became tall. They just do what they're designed to do, silently, patiently, consistently. And when the time is right, the results speak louder than any story could. So protect your energy the way you protect something sacred. Speak less about your path and walk it more. Let silence be your discipline and your declaration, because the truth is simple. Energy flows where attention goes, and only you decide where to direct it. ChatGPT said, "One of the hardest truths to accept is that people don't really understand you, they interpret you." Every person you meet listens through a filter made of their own fears, experiences, and insecurities. You may speak from honesty, but they hear through their wounds. You may share your truth, but they translate it into something that fits their version of reality. And that's why explaining yourself endlessly never brings peace. It only deepens the noise. You can't control how others perceive you, no matter how clearly you speak. The moment your words leave your mouth, they no longer belong to you. They belong to the listener, and the listener will reshape them based on what they believe about the world and about themselves. That's why so many people misjudge good intentions, twist pure motives, and project their pain onto others. It's not personal, it's psychological. Human beings don't see things as they are, they see things as they are. So when you tell people what's happening in your life, your plans, your challenges, your dreams, understand that most will respond not from understanding, but from interpretation. Some will doubt you because they doubt themselves. Some will discourage you because your courage reminds them of their own stagnation. Others will misunderstand you simply because your language is built from a depth they've never explored. This is why protecting your silence is an act of emotional maturity, not secrecy. True peace begins when you stop seeking to be understood and start focusing on being aligned. The purpose of your words is not to convince people of who you are. It's to express the truth of your path when it's necessary. But most of the time, silence expresses it better. When you stop explaining, you stop giving others the power to define your story. You begin to move beyond interpretation into authenticity. It's a kind of freedom, the freedom to live without defending your life. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself, you step out of their perception and into your own power. So, remember this: understanding is rare and interpretation is inevitable. Choose silence, not because no one listens, but because you've realized that only you need to understand your journey. ChatGPT said, "There's a deep truth many people overlook. Every word you speak carries energy. You release something invisible but powerful each time you open your mouth. And this energy can either build your inner strength or scatter it." Most people don't realize that words are like currency. You can invest them wisely, or you can spend them carelessly until there's nothing left. The difference between those who grow in silence and those who remain stuck in noise is how consciously they use their voice. When you speak with purpose, when your words arise from clarity, intention, and presence, they create movement. They influence, inspire, and align with reality. But when you speak to fill silence, to seek validation, or to prove your worth, you're not using language, you're leaking energy. You may feel powerful for a moment, but it's an illusion of control. True power doesn't announce itself, it holds itself. Silence, then, is not weakness. It's the art of energy conservation. The quieter you become, the more aware you are of how much energy is wasted in unnecessary speech, gossip, justification, over-explaining, defending yourself to people who have already made up their minds. Each of those moments drains you. But when you choose silence, that same energy begins to flow inward. It nourishes you instead of escaping you. It strengthens your intuition, sharpens your mind, and deepens your emotional balance. Think of your words like arrows. Once released, they cannot return. That's why those who master silence seem powerful, not because they say nothing, but because when they finally speak, every word carries weight. Their silence has compressed their energy into precision, and that precision gives their speech impact. You don't need to speak constantly to be understood. You need to speak consciously to be remembered. The world doesn't respect those who talk the loudest. It listens to those whose silence feels intentional. Because silence itself communicates. It tells the world you're not desperate for approval. You're grounded in awareness. So, before you speak, ask yourself, am I investing my energy or am I spending it? The difference between noise and wisdom lies in that one moment of awareness. Remember, words spend energy, but silence stores it. Choose storage over leakage. Choose mastery over noise, ChatGPT said. The moment you start sharing too much of your life, you open a door not just to connection, but to judgment. Every person who listens to your story carries their own lens of comparison, envy, and expectation. And whether you realize it or not, the more you reveal, the more space you give others to project their opinions onto your path. What begins as an innocent act of expression soon becomes a silent prison built from other people's thoughts. You may think that sharing your journey makes you more relatable, but too often it invites distraction. You start to shape your life according to how others react to it. You begin measuring your growth by their applause or their silence. This is how authenticity fades, not all at once, but in small moments where you adjust yourself to fit into someone else's understanding. And suddenly, you're no longer living from your truth, you're performing for an audience that doesn't even know your purpose. Judgment is unavoidable, but it becomes powerless when you stop feeding it with information. You don't need to explain your choices. You don't need to prove your progress. You don't need to broadcast your transformation for it to be real. The truth doesn't require witnesses to exist. It just requires consistency. The more you keep your process sacred, the more your life begins to align from within. Silence doesn't hide your progress, it protects it. It's not about being secretive, it's about being selective. Not everyone deserves access to your evolution. Some people only want information so they can compare, criticize, or compete. Let them wonder, let them assume. You don't owe anyone a performance. Growth is not a show. It's a private contract between you and your potential. When you choose to keep your life quieter, you reclaim ownership of your narrative. You no longer need permission to evolve. You simply evolve. The opinions of others begin to fade in importance, replaced by the quiet satisfaction of knowing you are moving forward not for attention, but for alignment. So remember this: the less you explain, the more peace you keep. Protect your life from becoming public property, because not everyone watching you wants you to win, but your silence leaves them nothing to interfere with. ChatGPT said, "There's a quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to speak. It's found in people whose presence says more than their words ever could. They don't announce their intentions, they don't advertise their growth, they simply live it. And over time, their consistency becomes their introduction. You can feel their discipline without them saying a thing. That's because actions communicate on a frequency words can't reach. We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, to prove, to document every step of their journey. But the paradox is this: the more you talk about who you are becoming, the less energy you leave for actually becoming it. Real transformation is often invisible. It happens in the quiet repetition of unseen habits, in the hours where no one claps, in the discipline no one notices. Words describe, but actions demonstrate, and demonstration builds trust not only from others, but within yourself. When your actions begin to align with your values, you no longer need to convince anyone. Your energy speaks for you. People can sense it in how you move, how you carry yourself, how you react when things don't go your way. You don't need to explain that you're evolving. Your calmness under pressure says it for you. You don't need to declare that you've grown. Your patience and focus make it undeniable. The truth is, actions have a spiritual weight that words cannot replicate. They leave imprints on the world around you. Each consistent act of discipline shapes your character and radiates through your presence. You don't have to tell people you're strong, strength shows. You don't have to tell people you're wise, wisdom reveals itself in silence, in how you respond when life tests you. And here's the beauty: when you shift from talking to acting, the right people start noticing without you asking them to. You begin to attract those who recognize integrity, not performance. You stop needing to announce your value because those meant to see it will. So let your actions speak your language. Let your movement express what your mouth no longer needs to say. Because in the end, people might forget what you've said, but they will never forget what you've shown. ChatGPT said, "There is a stillness that exists beneath all the noise of life, and it's within that stillness where clarity lives." When you stop announcing every detail of your journey, You create the space for alignment to take place. Silence, in its essence, is not emptiness. It's a form of communication between you and the universe. It's the moment when intention replaces impulse, when you begin to listen rather than just speak. And what you start to hear in that silence is guidance, quiet, subtle, and perfectly timed. Noise confuses direction. The more you talk about what you want, the more scattered your focus becomes. You start receiving too many opinions, too many distractions, and before you know it, your own voice gets lost in the echo of everyone else's. But when you withdraw from that noise, when you stop sharing and start observing, something profound begins to shift. The right ideas, the right opportunities, even the right people begin to gravitate toward you, not because you're chasing them, but because your energy is no longer fragmented. It's focused, it's aligned. You see, silence doesn't repel the world, it refines what reaches you. It filters out the irrelevant, the unstable, the temporary. It attracts what matches your frequency. When your mind is quiet, you begin to notice patterns, connections, signs you once missed because you were too busy explaining your life instead of experiencing it. In silence, your intuition strengthens. You begin to feel what's right for you before logic can even explain it. The world moves fast, but alignment happens slowly. It requires patience, trust, and inner awareness, things you can't cultivate while constantly speaking or seeking validation. That's why those who embrace silence seem effortlessly in tune with life. They don't chase, they attract. They don't demand, they prepare. So, let your silence become your magnet. Withdraw not out of isolation, but out of intention. Don't rush to tell the world what you're manifesting. Let the world witness what your silence creates. Because when you stop talking and start listening, you realize that everything meant for you has been trying to find you all along. It was just waiting for you to be quiet enough to receive it.